not an animal. God says you're made in God's image, and this is no small thing. This is powerful, powerful, and important principle. Most people don't grasp it, but it is a powerful concept. I understood it because, again, I've been a student of the Bible. I'm not a biblical scholar, but I read it and I try to understand it as best I can, and it's not something recent. I've been at it for a while. And as soon as I saw the drug laws, the definition of controlled substances and drugs, and also the definition of medical devices include the phrase man or other animals. As soon as I found it, I knew these guys are violating our freedom of religion. You cannot declare me to be an animal without violating what I regard as the second most important principle in the Bible, that we're made in God's image and we're given dominion over the animals. When you declare me to be an animal, you are violating my religious freedom. And that's exactly what the government has done with these damn drug laws and medical device laws. They've declared us all to be animals. We use the phrase man or other animals, or they also sometimes use the phrase animals other than man. Same thing. They are treating the people as animals. Absolute violation of my freedom of religion. It's also a violation of the Declaration of Independence. Declaration of Independence started this country, and it's still part of the organic law of the United States of America. That's not a personal opinion. I've got revised statutes of 1875, where the Congress declared the organic law of the United States of America includes the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, the Northwest Territorial Ordinance, and finally the Constitution of the United States. Those 4 documents comprise the organic law of the United States of America. It means that the Declaration of Independence to this day is as much the law as the Constitution. It's not just an interesting historical document. It's part of the law if you know how to get at it and you can cite it properly. The Declaration of Independence starts, the second sentence in the Declaration says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Second sentence in the Declaration of Independence. That sentence declares all men, again, to be equal and to be endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and it's a long story, and it's not, I won't try to get into it here. But it's the foundation for claiming our status as individual sovereigns. That's what this nation was intended to be, a nation of individual sovereigns. This was unprecedented in Western history. All right? Formerly, the only sovereign was the king of England, for example, or the king of Spain or the king of France. The reason he was sovereign was because he got his rights directly from God. He had the divine right of kings. All else were subjects because they did not get their rights directly from God. Whatever rights they had flowed through the king. The king was the one who was endowed by his Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that's what made him sovereign. When our country started out, they said, no, wait a second, we don't believe that just one man gets his rights directly from God. We believe all men get their rights directly from God, and they get an equal dose. And with that statement, they elevated all of us to the status of sovereigns. And as sovereigns, government was no longer our master. Government was our servant. This is where we had the idea that the man's home was his castle. We had the idea that government was to be our public servant. It flowed from the idea that you were a sovereign and I was a sovereign. That all of the living people in this country were individually sovereigns. It was borne out in the case of Chisholm versus Georgia, year of our Lord 1793, where the Supreme Court declared this nation to be comprised, the people to be sovereigns without subjects. No subjects, but all sovereigns. That was the impression. The third sentence of the Declaration of Independence says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. The first half of that sentence is what I want to focus on. It says that to secure these rights, which rights? The God-given, unalienable rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and there's others, but those are the ones that were mentioned. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. They're telling us that the purpose of government as envisioned by the founders was to secure to every man, woman, and even unborn child their God-given unalienable rights. Those rights attach as an attribute of creation, not birth, for example. All right? Under the 14th Amendment, you don't get your civil rights until you're born. 14th Amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Your civil attach until you are born. Your unalienable rights attach at the moment of your creation, which is no later than your conception. This is a powerful argument relative to abortion issue, for example. But getting back to the drug issue, how this relates to the drug issue. When the government declares us to be animals, the government no longer has an obligation to secure our God-given unalienable rights. If you are prepared to be an animal on this global plantation, if you're prepared to accept that status, then they're going to handle you just like so much livestock, like poultry in a chicken processing plant.
And that's what's happening.
That's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. This is powerful stuff. This is a powerful insight. And I want to make one other point. When I first started to read this, I mean, this is the sort of thing, again, I believe in, I don't just believe in the God of the Bible. I know for a fact He exists. All right? It isn't just a question of faith. It's a question of knowledge for me. This is important stuff, and the reason I got to this is because the good Lord sometimes lets me see. I don't see everything, I don't see perfectly, but sometimes He lets me see. So far as I know, I'm the first one to read the drug laws and realize what they mean. They've had people that are being charged drug dealing, all right? They get some drug dealers. I'm not here to advocate drugs. I don't do any. You understand? I mean, I've spent $15 on drugs in my entire life, and that was back in 1965. All right, and at the time it was, LSD, and it was legal at that time. I've never paid for any what people regard as illegal drugs. I don't do them. I drink water. I don't even drink coffee or tea or beer or what is that sort of thing. I'm not here to advocate drug use, but I am absolutely not going to tolerate a government that declares me to be nothing but livestock. I will not accept that. All right? If the government can't find a way, if they're so sure they want to deal with drugs, they're going to have to do it in a way that deals with me and other people as living men and women, endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and if they can't do that, then leave the issue alone. It's none of their damn business. When they declare us to be animals, they are absolved from the purpose of government envisioned by the founders, seen in the third sentence of the Declaration, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. The rights of men and women made in God's image. Those are the ones that they don't have any rights to animals that they have to secure. Again, they can treat you again just like livestock on the damn, in the global plantation and the Tyson poultry processing plant. They clip your little beak off and do whatever they want to do with you. Hang you up and, turn you into hamburger or chicken thighs, and so on. That's the implication. And it's not just rhetoric. All of this information is available on my blog. All right? And I've got, the blog is at Adask, adask.wordpress.com. And you go on the blog, and over on the right-hand side, there's a list of categories. And these are subjects that I've talked about on the blog. The very top category is man or other animals. If you click on that, it'll take you to a list of 8 different, I think it's 8, about 8, different documents I've written that deal with this concept of man or other animals. The first one, the earliest one, is down at the bottom of the list, and it's text that we submitted to the Attorney General's office when we first began to understand this concept. You can learn, you can verify this for yourself. You can see it. And the third one, the third of the documents, is the one that deals with genocide. The law of genocide is that anyone who creates circumstances or a particular group, a race, an ethnic division, an age group, any kind of particular group, I don't care how you want to phrase it, they create circumstances that merely increase the probability that that group will die. You don't have to kill anybody to commit genocide. All you have to do is increase the probability that that group might die. If they do that, it constitutes an act of genocide. You can go to a website called genocidewatch.org. I believe it's .org. It might be .com, but it's genocidewatch, and I think it's .org. If you fish around on that website, it's not mine, it's somebody else's, you'll find a document entitled The 8 Stages of Genocide. And it lists 8 stages, of each one of which is a different manifestation of genocide, and the last one where you actually kill people. Or maybe the last one is where you try to conceal the genocide, and the 7th one is killing people. But the 3rd step out of these 8 is dehumanization. That's the general term for it. And they specifically say, if you call another man or group, or race or whatever, you degrade them and say they're just animals, they're just insects, they're just vermin. That constitutes an act of genocide, because once you reduce people to the status of animals, insects, vermin, then you can exterminate them like a nest of rats or a hive of wasps out on the back porch. You don't have to sit. You can go after the non-combatants. You can go after the women. You can go after the children. You can kill them all because they're not men or women. This is a fundamental principle. The first time when you see these battles break out in Africa between the Hutus and the Tutsis, and they decide they're going to go after each other with machetes, the first thing they do is they say the Hutus are a bunch of animals. And as soon as everybody accepts the idea that the Hutus are a bunch of animals, then you can go kill them all. It's something that's not just endemic to the United States of America, it's something that's recognized around the world. When you reduce a man to the status of an animal, you have increased the probability that he may die. As such, when you apply that facts, you apply the facts of the relevant drug laws, the definition of drugs, the definition of medical devices, you apply them to, and again, in the case we were dealing with, we found, my recollection, I believe it was 23 separate instances where the drug laws and regulations referred to the people as animals. All right? About half of those were in Texas law, about half in federal law. We found them in 5 other states where we've looked.
Could you cite some of the federal ones so we can look them up?
They're in that document that I mentioned that's at my blog. Again, at adask.wordpress.com. Look under the categories section for man or other animals. Go all the way down to the bottom of the list, and there's a document there that we submitted to into the courts in our system that'll list these documents, that'll list these definitions and sites and so on. I can't pull them right out off the top of my head just by memory right this minute. I don't remember exactly what I was saying. The point was, well, here is maybe the point, just to move this on a little bit. We advanced this argument, and once I saw this, and again, I think I'm the first one to see it and understand what it meant. And they've had, again, I was talking about, you've got people that are dealing drugs, and they're paying attorneys hundreds of thousands of dollars for their defense. You understand? And the attorneys are getting them off with 5 years, and they think they're doing a great job. We didn't have any attorneys. We did this, no attorneys. You understand? We read the law. I actually read the law and understand it. And you've got powerful, highly educated attorneys that are reading the law, and they don't get it. They're letting their clients go to jail because they're too damn dumb to understand the law. We looked at this. I looked at it and I thought, my God, this is incredible and it's fantastic. And we drafted a religious freedom defense primarily. We used a couple other lines of defense, but this is the one that rocked our boat. And up until that time, we'd been receiving paperwork, certified mail, from the Attorney General of the state of Texas. We were getting it every 2 to 6 weeks. And it's unnerving. Postman comes to the door, and he says, I got certified mail for you. and you know it's coming from the Attorney General, and he's trying to get you for $25,000 a day. You understand? And you keep receiving this mail, and it's the sort of thing where you say, oh my God. You know, you don't much like it, but you get it. When we advanced the religious freedom defense for the first time and explained, look, we are not, you can't treat me as an animal. It's a violation of my freedom of religion, and when we advanced that, the first thing that happened, the Attorney General's office went dead silent for 5 months. We'd been getting paperwork from them every 2 to 6 weeks. Ben had been doing it for 2 years, and at that point I'd been in for a year and a half or thereabouts. I don't remember exactly, 15 months. Every 2 to 6 weeks get it. Now we get nothing for 5 months. Then the Attorney General's office comes back, we have a hearing, and the Chief Administrative Judge for Travis County. Travis County is the seat of government for Texas. That's where the state capital is located. And the Chief Administrative Judge, that's a big job. That's an important position down there. It's not just for the beginners don't come in and get to be Chief Administrative Judge. Chief Administrative Judge John K. Dietz takes over the case. And the first thing he does is he tries to intimidate us a little bit. He brings... we have a hearing, he brings, after we're into the hearing about 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes, he instructs the court reporter to ask for security. Have security come in here. And I thought, oh man, I'm going to jail, you know. These guys are going to throw me in jail. I'm going to spend another who knows how long. They brought security in. Security stood around for a while, and we didn't flinch and that sort of thing. And finally the judge says, you guys can go now. And after a little while, I said, I'm going to do something I've virtually never done before. I'm going to invite you guys back into chambers and see if we can work out a private settlement on this case. And we said, sure, you know. We didn't know exactly what was going on, but we said, sure, we're willing to do that. We went back into Judge Dietz's chambers. He talked to us, and then he talked to the Assistant Attorney General, Raul Noriega, who was in charge of this particular case. He was working back and forth, talking to us back and forth, and we spent ultimately 5 months in negotiations. I don't mean that we were there the 5 months. We had a meeting that day. We agreed to meet again in 6 weeks, agreed to meet again after that. The whole thing dragged on for 5 months before they finally just said, you guys aren't going to settle. We know that. They got down, in fact, they got down to where they offered us, where the only thing we had to do to settle this case was if Ben Taylor would take a food manufacturer's license. That's all he had to do. Just take the license. There would be no fines. They would wipe out all the fines. $25,000 a day gone. 100% gone. Plus, they wouldn't charge us with court costs. And the Assistant Attorney General, Raul Noriega, he told us at one point, he said he'd been there 22 years. He was driving a Mercedes-Benz that was provided to him by the state of Texas. You understand? That's a pretty good job. All right? He's been Assistant Attorney General for 22 years, driving a Mercedes-Benz, and he told us in his time he had never heard of a case where the Attorney General was prepared to not only not charge the fines, but not even charge court costs. And the court costs would have run $500,000 in this case. We know that they told us at one point how much money they'd spent, and we understand. We extrapolated a little bit, but they figured they spent the best part of $500,000 on this case. They didn't even want the $500,000. They would let us go if Ben would just take a food manufacturer's license. Well, we wouldn't take the license. No? And after that, we had 2 more hearings. They said they claimed they were jurisdictional hearings. They claimed they had jurisdiction in the case. And after that, we haven't heard a word from them now since, I think it was November 2007. They just dropped the case. We wouldn't settle, and they couldn't proceed. They'd invested 6 years and $500,000 in this case, and they simply dropped it because we advanced a religious freedom defense. Now, I think that's unprecedented. I don't know of anyone else that's done anything like that. And it is not proof that this argument works. We never got to a court where they said, yeah, you're right. But it's pretty good evidence. When the Attorney General of the state of Texas says, hey, you know, we're dropping the case, we're just, forget it, we're not going no further. The reason they dropped the case is because the political implications are explosive. The war on drugs initiated by President Nixon back in 1971 is based on a definition of drugs that presumes the people to be animals. If this argument goes to court, how are you going to get a jury to admit that they and their children and their parents and everybody they've ever loved or liked, including the defendant, are nothing but animals? I don't see how you're going to get this past the jury. But assuming you did, and assuming the state could win in court, and they found a jury said, yeah, we don't mind being called animals, and find this guy guilty and we're going to sentence him to 25 years or something like that. Fine, you go up on appeal. You are going to have to reach an appellate court judge, especially if you have any political support. If you gather up some demonstrators that are going to start to surround the courthouse and start demonstrating, and they get their signs and that sort of thing, we are not animals. Violation of Genesis 1:26 through 28. Violation of the Christian faith. Violation of the Jewish faith. Violation of the Muslim faith. I'm not a student of Muslim, but I'll bet you the Muslims are operating under the same principle. They don't believe themselves to be animals. They believe themselves to be made in God's image. I'll bet that's true, but I don't know it to be so. But even if it's not, you get the Christians out there and say, wait a second, this government can't treat us like animals. How are they going, how far can they run this up the appellate ladder before some appellate court is going to say, look, we can't treat the people like animals. They are men and women. How far can they go if you advance the genocide argument and show you sons of bitches are committing genocide against the people of the United States of America? And it's not rhetoric. You look at the law, you look at the facts, you put the two of them together, you say, by God, the federal government is committing genocide against the American people. And it's not just crazy talk. It's what it is. That's what's happening. They can't touch this issue, in my opinion. Now, you got to be able to present it. All right? This isn't something for some dummy to just walk in the door. You're going to have to be able to articulate the ideas. You're going to have to understand the idea and then understand the concept in order to make this work for you. But it's not rocket science. It takes some study, it takes some understanding, but it's not rocket science. Nixon started the war on drugs based on the presumption that the people are nothing but animals. That war on drugs has persisted and laid the foundation for much of the modern police state. If it weren't for the war on drugs, we wouldn't have, most people are like, oh, the damn police state. There wouldn't be a police state that was worth mentioning right now if they couldn't go after people for drugs. I'll make you bet, I don't know what percentage of the police activity is devoted to controlling drugs one way or another, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's 50%, and I bet it's at least a third of their activity is drug-related. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 50%. That means you take the drug laws down, and all of a sudden you have taken a bite out of the police department where they don't need half of their employees, or they're going to have to put them to work actually catching people who've committed crimes like murder, robbery, and rape. Right? The police state laid the foundation for the prison industrial complex. We jail a higher percentage of people in this country than any other nation on the face of the earth. By that measure, we are the world's biggest police state, and I've seen studies that indicate that 70% of the people that are in federal penitentiaries, they're there for drug-related crimes. The prison industrial complex is built on the police state, which is built on the war on drugs, which is built on a little definition of drugs that presumes the people to be animals. This whole monstrous edifice of police state and prison industrial complex, this whole thing is perched like a pyramid on a tip. Instead of laying on its base and going up to the small tip, it's on that little tiny tip of a definition of drugs that presumes the people to be animals, and it's an absolute violation of their freedom of religion. And there's no way to argue around it that I'm able to even imagine.
Who's responsible for that language?
Language goes back to the earliest reference we find is the 1906 Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act. We think it goes back, we think it started in 1906. That was the first time they used a man or other animals phrase that we've been able to find. It might go back a little bit beyond that. It wasn't significant. It was just food, drug, and cosmetics at the time. All right? I don't think it was all that significant and potent in 1906, but here we are a century later, and it's big. I mean, it's big. If you can bring this in front of a jury, and they said, no, you can't treat us like animals. You take down the prison industrial complex, you take down the police state, you take down the war on drugs. I mean, this is powerful, powerful stuff, and I believe that's why when we advanced this argument, and we refused to reach a settlement with these people, even though it got down to where, again, all they had to do is take a license. If you'd taken a license, the whole thing would have been forgotten. But they would have admitted, they could have avoided this thing. We wouldn't take the license. They dropped the case. They can't take the political implications, in my opinion, are too great for them to deal with.
So you've got two important issues here. One, a right for one is a right for all. And the other is you can't convert a right into a privilege and charge for it. Do you relate to either of those two statements?
I understand what you're saying in broad strokes. My position is, you have your arguments that the principles you've just pointed out are more legal. And I don't have any objection to that. I don't think it's bad or anything like that, but I'm hanging on a spiritual foundation. I'm going on a religious and also a political perspective on this case. Religion, you can't treat me like an animal. Genesis 1:26 through 28 makes it absolutely clear that a Christian can't be an animal, a Jew can't be an animal, and more than likely a Muslim can't be an animal.
Why did you not take the license? What if the license said, we recognize you're a human being?
Yeah, if you take the license, you agree. Once you take the license, you've admitted that you're subject to their authority.
I got you.
Here's what it comes down to. As near as we can see, the system operates on the presumption that you have consented to be treated as an animal.
I see.
I can't tell you that's God's truth, but I think that's how they operate. They operate on that presumption. If you take the license is for the animals. They're licensing the animals. You're right back in the same boat. You defeat your own argument if you take the license. We sat back and said, no, we are men, made in God's image, endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Now, and you can't impose these laws on us. They are unconstitutional. They violate our First Amendment freedom of religion in its Article 1, Section 10, or Section 6 in the Texas Constitution. You're violating my freedom of religion. You can't make your drug law stand against my freedom of religion. It must be modified to eliminate the presumption that the people are animals. Now, it may be that once we defeat these drug laws, they might be able to go back and modify the law, and they might be able to apply it to men and women. But I don't think so. Maybe they can. Maybe okay, we're not going to treat you as animals anymore, but we still own you, we can still do what we want to you. I don't think so. I think this creates too big a problem. If they could do it, they wouldn't have created the presumption that we are animals in the first place. If you can reestablish that you are a man, that you are a woman, not a person, not an inhabitant, not a citizen, none of that. You got to be the man, you got to be the woman. You have to appear as one of the people of the state of New York. Not one of the persons, not one of the public, one of the people. Got to be one of the man, got to be the woman. If you can establish that, you can you can make them blink. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't give you, say it's God's truth. I can just tell you what happened in our case. And again, from my perspective, they invested $6.5 million, and they just dropped it. Pretty good evidence that it's not proof, but it's pretty good evidence that this is a powerful and valid, concept and line of defense. So if you've got questions, I guess I can continue, but I've pretty much made my pitch.
The only question that I have is, do you know anything about the New York law on that?
No, I can't, but it wouldn't even be hard to find. I mean, you start looking into whatever the New York law is, there will be definitions for controlled substances. All right, you can take a look, again, if you'll take a look at the paperwork that I have on the blog. You download it, it's there available, anybody who wants to look at it can look at it. It'll spell out where we found it and what we looked for under Texas law.
Give your blog again so people can, give your blog again so people can get it.
It's Adask, A-D-A-S-K, that's my last name, ADASK.wordpress.com. Okay? You put you in there, and there it'll take you down. And again, just look for, under the categories section, on the right-hand side, you'll see man or other animals as the first category. Click on it. It'll take you to a list of 8 documents. Click on any one of the 8 documents you can read, and you'll be able to download it, take a look at it, and start at the bottom and work your way to the top. The bottom is the older documents. They are the original insight. And the one at the bottom in particular, it is at least, I haven't looked at it in a long time, but it's at least primarily a document that was submitted to the court in our case. And it spells this out as well as I could at the time. You know, here we are now. That was drafted, what? Something like 2006, if I recall correctly.
Hi, this is Paula Glory, and we're coming to you today live from the fabulous studios at Manhattan Neighborhood Network, 537 West 59th, for any of you who want to come down in person and speak your piece, because that's what public access is all about. Today, I'm really pleased to have with me a fellow MNN producer, and that's Frank Craven.
Hello, Paula.
Remind me,
what was it, 10 years ago? We did Sex Slavery in the White House.
I know. And for a while on YouTube, that was my hottest show.
Yeah.
Thousands of people were visiting it. And then it got superseded by DeAndrea's show. That went really lively. But now Run From the Cure got picked up on Dr. Mercola's site. He's the alternative doctor. If you could take our sound to the main studio down, then we won't hear ourselves echo. It's just take it off going to 1 to 2 to the mix. So we're hoping to get calls from you. Keep the number up at all times, 757-1393. That's the number that you want to call, because we want to hear from you on this incredible topic of man and other animals. In other words, is man an animal? The drug laws are written man and other animals. It's not even man and animals. And so this starts to get us thinking about what does it mean to be a human being? And of course, I feel, since this show has always been about spirituality and politics, is that every human being that's born has a great potential, something huge and enormous that he can achieve with the divine connection. And that's why in our Constitution, the First Amendment is one of the most important. That's why it's the first. It's not only religious freedom, it's freedom for free speech. So when a person has a connection to the divine, the first thing they want to do with this connection is tell others that they can also have a connection. And this was something that was so important to the people who first came to America, because they'd gone through all kinds of religious abuses in Europe, that they wanted to make sure that in this new country they would have religious freedom, and they would have freedom of free speech. They would be able to say whatever they wanted, as long as it didn't hurt anyone. Now, what Al Adask is talking about in this Man and Other Animals is that we were a nation of sovereigns, and that our Constitution means people were free and could do anything they want unless it violated the freedom of somebody else. And that as more laws and statutes were added, these laws and statutes should make our Constitution stronger. They shouldn't be laws that try to get around serving the people. The government should serve the people. But how many people are going into court today with this understanding that the judge, the prosecutor, and all of the paraphernalia that goes along with our court system is there to serve you? Most people are shivering as defendants, knowing that they're like cattle that are going to be sent off to the slaughterhouse, because in truth, we have the largest prison state in the world. We're not free. Many of our brothers and sisters are in cages. And so I'm very interested in people who are going into court and having 90% success rate. These people are going in without attorneys, so it takes a certain amount of courage to do it. In the case of the big pot dealers or drug dealers that he was talking about, but pot is in everyone's awareness because of all this legalization and the propositions in California, they have so much money riding on what has been taken away that they hire lawyers for hundreds of thousands of dollars and are happy when they get off with 5 years. So why did this case in Texas sort of evaporate and go away? Al Adesk, who's a student of the Bible, he doesn't call himself a scholar, but he says he knows it. Why was his case evaporated? Why did they not pursue it farther? On his blog, he gives an idea of why that's the case. But his feeling was as if it went up to the Texas Supreme Court, you'd have 50% of nonviolent offenders being released from prison. And we haven't had economists paying attention to what that model looks like. But we could, and we should. Is there a call?
Yes, call. Yes.
Great. Put us on the 2-shot so we get Frank, too.
Okay,
Great.
call.
Caller?
Actually, he hung up. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Frank, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, my thoughts are many. Basically, Suffolk County and Nassau and most counties get money per prisoner from Albany, and it's just a business. They'll arrest you if your insurance lapses on the car, you don't have your license suspended or something. Any minor infraction is completely able to have them throw you in the clink even one day. Even for each day, I think it's around $362 extra they get. So they just see, the cops see the people as numbers now. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, it's well known going back from Admiral Secord, who brought the heroin in from Laos and Cambodia, and then the Contra, the cocaine connection. And it's all a big ruse. The military guards the hemp fields. The military allows the big drug dealers, and they create money, and it's a bureaucratic game. This war on drugs is over as soon as we say, no, it's legal, like they do in Amsterdam, they're doing in Portugal. They're allowing the fact that they'd rather build rehabs and get junkies off of the addiction and help stop crime, and crime is reduced in these countries that have declared victory on the war on drugs by no longer fighting, because it's like the war on terrorism. It's a self-perpetuating lie that generates more terrorism. And another thing, I don't think that we should call pot drug. It's not a drug. It's a natural God-given plant that's a healing, that has given us healing throughout the world, and it has a history of healing, and it's a blessed thing. As the Bible says in Genesis 11 and 12, I give ye green seed-bearing plant as food, and it is good. And this is what nature provides. Like the coca leaf. There's history in Bolivia and Peru. Coca is a medicine for the high mountain altitudes. But the white man has taken it and made cocaine a derivative and a narcotic that creates a whole mafia bureaucratic business within the government that is profiting off of this terrible thing.
I hope for the viewers out there that you're recording this, because what Frank said is a lot. There's a lot going on here, and for that reason, I'm asking my viewers for the next few weeks to become students. I'm going to be showing 6 different hours of the Constitution Man, and this is a man who is a Vietnam vet and came back, and he's now fighting just as heroically in the courts with 90% success rate. Following that, I'm going to be showing a man named Gene Keating. He explains the whole finances behind the prison industrial complex. Did you know that the courts are privately owned corporations? Did you know that the courts have a Dun & Bradstreet number? And did you know that if you know how to argue correctly, we can regain our Constitution, and that if we do regain our Constitution, and regaining it really means understanding it. And to me, understanding it means putting it to use, feeling that connection with totality. Some people call it God. Some people call it something else.
Call coming.
Caller? Shall I slink down so I fit into this? Or
Go
maybe
ahead,
you can
call,
raise
go
it
ahead.
up. Caller, are you there? If you're there, just...
Hello.
Yes.
Hi.
Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, turn down your television, mute it, otherwise we're going to be hearing the feedback, the delay. Listen to us over the telephone.
Okay. I heard that Al Adex you just interviewed, the person you interviewed, was on 60 Minutes just yesterday. That's
Yes.
the same person?
Yes, and I think 60 Minutes made it very demeaning, but when you start to see these kind of ideas on mainstream, then you can really appreciate public access. Because I was telling somebody who I was in court with up in Connecticut for the Schaghticoke Indian tribe. They were the First Nation, and we were in court, and we're just learning these defenses, but I could see he got enough on the record to shake him up. So he saw that 60 Minutes piece,
And I said, look, if we're sovereigns, we're not a herd. Each sovereign is going to learn his connection. He's going to learn his constitution. He's going to learn where he stands. So whether 60 Minutes gives it a good thing or a bad thing, it doesn't matter. If 60 Minutes gave the most beautiful, praiseworthy kind of show about being a sovereign in court, but you don't know your constitution, your ass is going to land up in the slammer. So it's
yes, true. 60 Minutes for the past 15 years, maybe 20 years, has changed their tone in a way where it's pro the establishment. Mediocre reporting, not the greatest for the past 10, 15 years. And when they had the label of sovereign citizen, people might confuse that with sovereign human being. And sovereign human being is what I believe Rick Simpson is talking about. And they want to try to combine or couch the name of sovereign citizen with sovereign human being, so that anyone who tries to defend themselves using the word sovereign or sovereign human being is labeled as someone who's a domestic terrorist or an anarchist, when all you're doing is fighting for your rights, either as a drug case, criminal case, or even taxes. Like they had Wesley Snipes. They used him as he actually used language as a sovereign citizen, which we probably meant sovereign human being. And you're paying child support.
Say, caller, I am so excited. You are so right on about this. Here in Manhattan, I think it's the Moors that seem to be most successful in arguing in court. So I'm delighted that I'm running across their clips on YouTube. I am spending all night long listening to what's going on the internet. There's a whole nation that is just seething to reclaim their dignity. People who are having houses in foreclosure are learning how to argue their way out in court, and they're letting go of their shame, because when you understand what's happening, and it really takes a while to understand, because you have to know 4 things. You have to know trust law, you have to know accounting, you have to know commercial law, and you have to know something else that I forgot. But the point is, tax law, once you see all of these things, you see how they fit together, and then you know it's not just being a parrot to say, oh, I don't understand the charges, but what's the use to fix up a UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code? It's just a code. It's not law. It works under the law. But if we don't understand the Constitution, we sit there and we think we've reclaimed our birth certificate back. But then as soon as we go to court, we're tricked out of it when they say, do you understand the charges? They're talking about a Black's Dictionary understanding. Do you stand under like an underwriter? Do you agree with it? So you've already lost your jurisdiction. But I hear that the Black Moors... What do you mean when
the judge says, do you understand the charges against you?
You've already, I understand that, yes.
And then if you say yes, then you fall into their trap and are contracted to follow the rules. If you say, no, I don't understand, I'm innocent, I don't get it.
Explain to me how a compelling state interest has been harmed by my activities. Show me the victim as a person operating under this Constitution in a public trial. Bring before me the bill of particulars. What is it that I've done? How have I harmed? Cite the science and so on.
I've been harmless, and especially in the case of marijuana, which is healing. This is my medicine. This is my belief.
Excuse me, but see, then you enter into a contract when you discuss it, so you have to be very careful.
Well, I'm going to hang up now. Thank you very much, and I'll continue listening.
And caller, I'm so pleased with how attentive you are, and continue being attentive, because in the coming weeks, except for the times that I go live, which will be sporadic here and there, it's going to be a lot of schoolwork. But it's going to be really valuable, and I hope, join me on YouTube and turn me on to anything I might be missing.
Well, I think I should do that, record it. But I met you and your lovely husband when you had the wedding at the St. Mark's Church.
Oh, thank you.
I just want to say that. Take care, and I'll continue to listen. And I think you should be a Paula Gloria Institute for the Sovereign Citizen.
Oh, but just a second, you have to be careful. The sovereign human being, we're not actually citizens.
That's right, sovereign human being.
I know, we have to keep catching ourselves, don't we? That's why I want to have more people physically getting together. Like when you came to the wedding, that was a beautiful thing. I invited everyone. We were a little nervous. Oh, my God, will we be able to feed everyone? But, my God, we were. We had enough food that it went back to Woodstock, and it was able to feed some hungry people up in Woodstock. So thank you for coming to our wedding.
I'm looking at the idea that we're not just we're citizens of the world. It's not just nationals. We're global citizens with the internet, the web streaming, and the whole idea of that will stop war. And then come to see that, you know, in God's eyes, both sides are fools, and we have no reason to fight. And even stepping beyond the global citizenry feeling, we're intergalactic. We're universal citizens. We're part of, yes, of a universal construct where the galaxy is in constant motion. And like it or not, Earth is going through changes now. We're sucking out all of the oil. We've gone past peak oil, so the tectonic plates are shifting. That's why every day there's earthquakes all over more and more climate change. And this is what has been predicted in Bible and ancient texts, and also NASA and science. You know, the planet is shifting in a dramatic way, and we as light beings are also shifting. We're going into an elevated consciousness and a higher awareness and acceptance of our divinity and our participation not only on the planet but in the whole solar system and in the universe.
I want to know.
Any more calls?
Yeah, I want to know what the sovereign domestic terrorists. I mean, that is a big term. When someone says you're a domestic terrorist, if you're sovereign.
Yeah, well, whatever. I've always called myself an intellectual terrorist. You know, no one's born a terrorist. People are terrorists. And the suicide bombing thing just happened after '89 when communism failed. All of a sudden, the Islamic Jihad has flourished, and it's a construct of the Pentagon to cheerlead war to justify $720 billion for 2012 to the Department of Defense. They need a boogeyman to generate war, and it's all a big lie and a hoax. And,
I think there were suicide bombers in Israel long before '89.
Well, yeah, but there was a Palestinian thing to get their land back. I'm saying they weren't born that way. They were just led to desperate means. People who are desperate, have nothing to lose, might as well kill themselves and kill others to try to free the land.
But Alan,
in terms of nonviolent communication, it would be a desperate need for attention or for something that they need.
Liberation from oppression.
There's another point, Alan, on this, and this is why I loved your interview with your uncle on psychoanalysis or psychotherapy, because the Constitution man, who I'm going to be showing in the future, and I'm wanting people to sort of prep up for really studying, he says that when he started to do the constitutional rap, the judge indicated he should get a mental evaluation. And he said to the judge, has it come to this, to where when people argue for their constitutional rights, they are considered insane? Has it come to this? And the judge agreed with him. The judge knew that the country's in trouble when the supreme law of the land, when people start understanding it and knowing it, that they think you can't do it, that you've got to go along with the herd and do all of these horrible machinations on Wall Street and so on.
No way. Thomas Jefferson said if there isn't a revolution in this country every 20 years, I'm worried because it was born on a revolution. It was a political experiment of freedom and justice for all that was initiated basically by white landowners to give them credence and ignore the genocide the indigenous people, and the blacks and women didn't have rights. But they knew that there was a political experiment of freedom and justice, and that it has to be renovated. And democracy means participation and getting involved with the government, getting involved with signing petitions and making legislation happen. And what's happened, of course, money pushes people in one direction, so the corporations, it's an oligarchy run by corporations and their profit. And the whole medical industry is a profit-driven industry, and it's all about money. But that's not the spirit of our Constitution and freedom and justice in country.
Listen to this. Man is not an animal. Man is also not a corporation. The reason they say corporations have the rights of human beings is because human beings aren't standing up for their rights. A corporation can never have the right of a human being. Even when you go into court and your case is represented by an attorney, you're no longer a sovereign. An attorney can represent you. A corporation can represent a certain collection of interests. But you as a sovereign can stand up and say that's where the power of the corporations come from. Caller? Yes, caller? Just blurt it out. And we're with you. This is an extremely exciting topic. Yes, hello. You have to make it louder. We can hardly hear the caller.
Okay, am I?
Yes, I hear
you.
On? Mute your television, though.
Okay, yes. What I would like is I was flipping through my channel, and I would like some more information on your organization and how I would follow up. There was also a man on earlier who gave his email address, not his website, and I didn't catch that.
Okay, what you want to do is maybe on the CG you could put it up so people get the spelling, but it's Al Adask, A-L-A-D-A-S-K.
I'm sorry, can you read?
If people are on the character generator, they can put it up and they can flip it
Al
over.
Adask.
Have you got your pen out?
There it is.
A-D-S-K?
Yeah. A-D-A-S-K. Just Google him up and he'll come up. Now what's interesting is he's had this argument since 2006 and nobody's picked up on it because, you know, whether pot's a drug or not, there's big bucks involved with people who are dealing it. And I think everybody should be entitled to be active in any kind of commerce they want that doesn't harm anyone. But in our Constitution, Congress did reserve the right to control commercial activities. I think that's one of the four things. You need to understand commercial law, tax law, trust law, and also accounting.
It's also interesting to remember that Thomas Jefferson and George Washington were originally hemp farmers.
They were
George
smugglers.
Washington said,
they were smugglers also. They smuggled seeds in from China, and the seeds left China under death penalty. So isn't that incredible?
Oh, really?
They were also smugglers.
Harold Tanner, the one and only.
But is the lady happy? Okay, Harold? You can take
Yeah.
up Al Adask and put the number back up. This is so exciting, Harold. Wait until you see the financials.
Oh yeah, listen, let me mute.
Take
I
off
gotta
out,
mute.
thanks.
Wait a minute, mute. Okay, yeah, that constitutional man is a piece of work. He's really, really good. And the thing came to my occurrence, it's so convoluted the way he has the law down, the right case to do, how to take a position in court. I was just wondering if somebody couldn't, and I don't know how it would be done, but if they couldn't have some sort of a thing where his mind or his understanding of the intricacies of that could be done with algorithms where somebody's got a particular thing and then they could access the good curriculum by having it on an internet program that could be something that people could go to user-friendly in order to run down and become more effective.
Harold, it's already happening. What I've been seeing on the internet kind of puts me to shame as a public access producer in Manhattan because I thought I really knew a lot. But when I saw, I think what you call autodidactic, I remember Buckminster Fuller's first interview with you. These people are teaching themselves, truly.
Yeah, I know.
They are learning and exchanging. These people are under the gun. They're losing their farms. They're losing their homes. And when they understand how to argue, they realize they're not a bunch of deadbeats that can't make their payments.
Yeah,
because the reason they can walk on the foreclosures is the banks or whoever has been doing these unconstitutional things have been doing so many illegal moves that they don't want this to go up into higher courts. But eventually it has to. So Harold, we've got to get Norman Kurland, we've got to get Robert Ashford. It's imperative that we get the thinkers who understand economics.
Is there any way that the knowledge that Constitution man, you can't hear me, I guess. The idea that the ideas and the intricacies of his understanding the law in the way that people can protect themselves could be more effectively garnered for the people is to have some sort of a thing where there would be algorithms or things. You've got a problem with a mortgage, and then it goes, and you could get his knowledge into a program that people could access in a user-friendly way because it gets so intricate, and we can't all become expert the way he is.
I know what you're saying,
all the nuance.
Harold. I know what you're saying, but I'm not even sure what you mean by algorithm, and I'm sure a lot of these farmers and people who we consider as Manhattan less educated, but man, are they smart. I think because of their lack of education, they're beginning to see, hey, something doesn't make sense here. My Bible says that I should be here, that God wants me here, and yet I'm being forced out. What's going on? And you see people like Henry George, the great thinkers, probably Louis Kelso. Eustace Mullins was kind of ashamed that he hadn't read Progress and Poverty by Henry George. And I say, what is the Robert Schachenbach Foundation actually doing? Why do people here in Manhattan not understand Henry George and not understand monopoly? So whether it's algorithms or not, I will say, whether I'm studying Joe's case, whether I'm thinking about my own case with excessive maintenance, it's forcing me out of my co-op, All of these, the Indians up at the reservation, it's all the same knowledge that you need. You need those 4 areas. You need accounting, commercial law, tax law, and whatever the other one is. I always zip off on it. But you need to master that. And
well, it's going to be very hard for everybody to master it in the degree that he has it mastered. His not.
To tell you the truth, Harold, I don't know. Harold went out. I don't know if we are out.
Well, we got a couple minutes.
We have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Well, anyway,
Harold went out,
we do harm to people, or don't we?
Let me answer Harold. Harold said that for people who can't learn this, is there some place that they can go to? So far, I would say it's developing in the underground on these radio shows. So I got Joe, my husband, to videotape me washing my car in Gramercy Park to see if we can start the Concordia Foundation Gramercy Park car wash so that people can start to help us out, even if they believe in the labor theory of value. And then what I'm going to do is superimpose over that visual all of this stuff I'm capturing on the internet on these radio shows, because some of them are 6 hours long.
Caller.
Caller.
Hi.
Hello.
I can't hardly hear him. That's why. Hello.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. Now I can.
Yeah. I think.
I can't hear you anymore. The reason
having a style guide or a survival guide for any predicament of the criminal nature that you have been arrested for online, so you can have a survival guide, a point of reference, where you have Constitution Man or any other tenet, even Frank Craven's idea, a comprehensive website, which I should come down and help you out. A website where you can have all different types of administrative procedures, references, constitutional references.
Great, go for it.
Do you have those?
Or PDF files, and you can actually. Yes. This is Joe Schmo. I live in a tenement building where I'm being increased a maintenance fee. Or this is Joe Schmo. I live on a farm, and
we have to seize our power and do it ourselves. We can't depend upon the government to help us out. We intelligent beings have to make the difference.
We have
and as Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world.
Right.
So it's up to us to make this big difference and work with the Center of Constitutional Rights and all these other places that are progressively thinking and doing the change that we want to make happen.
Yeah, hallelujah. Caller, please come down. I'm going to try to go live on Friday. I don't know if I can or not. I haven't checked the schedule.
Well, at the end of the show, give you your information so I can write it down.
Why don't you call me at home, 212-982-0021, because anybody who wants to help this cause, I'm here at your beck and call. We definitely need website skills. The PDF files, they all exist. It's 212-982-0021, so you can contact me after we go off.
I'm hanging up.
The PDF files, they all exist. Barbara Rosenfeld is really good at finding them. You need to hunt around, but you want something more user-friendly to Manhattan, which we will probably more emphasize the co-op situation, the maintenance. You have to do a little twisting to see that all these issues are indeed related. But ultimately...
And there's a struggle for justice worldwide. Everyone really wants to have the right thing versus the wrong thing. I've given up on politics. It's not left or right, it's right or wrong. Torture's wrong, war's wrong, and etc. And so we proceed with faith, and we will be rallied around by people that are supportive of our good intentions.
Who just walked in the camera was DMT. DMT goes live, and he's helping me.
and Shanti in the control room.
Caller, go ahead.
I thought you said we're going out. Caller.
30 seconds.
Yeah, we'll get you even when we go out. We'll get it for the YouTube. So caller.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. I know everything you're saying, I believe, but I also think, like, you know, the Osama bin Laden situation, I think that, first of all, I think that he wasn't even behind 9/11 in the first place, but you know that story. But I also believe that they didn't really kill him because it doesn't really make any sense. Why would you give a mass killer good treatment by giving him a proper burial and then not even showing the photos? Like, there's something fishy about the whole situation, you know? So I just don't believe anything the government's telling us about Osama.
Yeah, don't believe anything the government says. Read mainstream news media. They're all lies. They're the profit and making money.
Yeah, but make the government your servant, because the government should be your servant. If your government is going astray and he's your servant, then you are amiss. You haven't studied enough. You haven't stood up enough. Do you know, caller, much about the Black Moors?
Yeah, I know that.
Anybody that knows about the Black Moors, I invite them to be on my show. I really admire what they're doing in court. They're starting with the divine connection.
Wait, but the Black Moors, like, I know what they are, like, about the whole history and everything, but you saying they're in court or whatever, what does that mean?
Well, from what I've seen on YouTube, and I could be wrong, I'm just saying they're part of our Manhattan community. I come out on the Community Affairs channel. This show is all about community. So I want to know more about this exciting part of our community in Manhattan. The clips I've seen on YouTube are very impressive. The guy that was arguing for his case, you know, he had his Black Moor hat on and so on. He really had his shit together. He really knew what he was talking about. And, you know, it's about jurisdiction, but I'm learning venue is even more important. And then you need to know the admiralty versus the land stuff. And apparently they even have high water marks in a lot of the courts. So you can see they know that physical location's important. And that's why we who are living in Manhattan, who were kind of bamboozled into thinking we were owners when we bought co-ops, are also being tricked out of litigating correctly.
I also got a problem with, like, I applaud you for doing shows like this to expose certain stuff, but the thing is, I just wanted to get out into the open media so more people can know about this type of stuff, you know, on shows, like on, like, the regular channels, like on 4 or 5, you know.
You mean because of what 60 Minutes did to sort of sabotage it? You don't want that to happen? I understand what you're saying. But come down sometime when we go live, and I'll get my, you know, help me if we can on the website stuff. We have to go out now because we're losing our control room help, and I need to talk to you, Alan.
Okay,
so.
say goodbye.
Okay, so this is Paula Gloria, over and out. And
hi, Frank Craven. What's Ailing Healing America? Friday nights at 9:30, Channel 34.
Great, thank you. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, DMT Alan, for helping.
And Shanti.
And Shanti,
Shanti,
of course.
yay.
God bless you, Shanti. Yes. So I need to get that thing to you.
This is the tube I burned.
Oh, thanks. People are actually going to use this in court to save their lives.
Really?
You can keep that.
What were you going to give me? What were you going to give me now?
I need to give you.
Hello?